The Golden State Warriors are embarrassing. The team from the Bay sits at 22-23, outside of the play-in after being an early first-seed contender. Steph Curry is getting worse by the game. Steve Kerr seems incapable of managing this untalented roster, and the young guys' development has stagnated. The front office has shown no willingness to improve the roster for an aging franchise legend, and there have somehow been rumors of Curry not finishing his career in the blue and yellow, and Draymond Green has been ruining his reputation and could go down as a dirty bum instead of one of the best defenders ever. This is an absolute disaster for the recently once great organization, and they could be wasting the final years of an all-time great while stagnating the careers of younger guys like Jonathan Kuminga, and we should be ashamed of this franchise that seems to be okay with this sudden decline. But to understand just how bad this season has been, we have to set the stage for the beginning of the year. Fresh off a legendary Olympic run in which superstar Curry had an elite run to clinch the gold medal for Team USA, the Warriors were on fire, starting 12-3 and the first seed in the West, even above the OKC Thunder after the first month of the season, and they had some impressive wins, like beating the Celtics, Rockets, and Thunder on the road, and Memphis and Dallas in back-to-back games. Buddy Hield was getting legit MVP consideration. That's not a joke, averaging 21 points on 52, 51, 86 shooting splits in his first 8 games, and many Warriors fans thought that he was the next Splash Bro, the actual replacement to Klay Thompson, at least for the short term. Golden State was making nearly 16 threes a game and shot at a top 5 rate in the league, and were forcing turnovers and limiting opponents' threes, with teams making just 12 threes a game and shooting below 32% against them. They were top 6 in offensive and defensive rating through the first month, the only team to be that good on both sides, and with the plus 10 net rating, they ranked 3rd in the association. While some doubted the Warriors' fast start, the stats and game results showed this team was legit. They could beat anyone in the league, control the deep range shot at a historic rate, and had role players consistently stepping up, something that was a key contribution to the unlikely 2022 championship run. With Curry shooting at an otherworldly 45.1% rate from 3, and the others doing more than their part, Golden State looked every bit of an elite team that could compete in a dangerous West early. But the oncoming fall would be shocking, with the depth of that conference backfiring them, as they now sit below many of the teams that were previously outmatched by the Warriors. Since the 12-3 start, Golden State are a horrid 10-20, which ranks 13th in the West, below bottom feeders like the Trailblazers and other disappointments like the Suns and 76ers. A far cry from the original 3rd best record after the first month. What was the backbone of the offense, the opponent deep range shot, is now being shot at a below league average rate, while opposing teams are shooting at the 2nd best percentage in the league against the Warriors. The average result of a Warriors game in the last 2 months has been a 5-point loss, a worse plus minus than the 12-win Hornets and 10-win Jazz. The rest of the roster isn't helping much either. After the fiery start, Buddy Hield is shooting a measly 32.8% from deep, converting 67 of his 204 attempts, while other Warriors like Wiggins and GP2 cannot buy a deep range shot. A growing development has been just how bad sophomore Brandon Podziemski has gotten. Pods got multiple votes for Rookie of the Year last season and was expected to be a big piece for the future of this team. At just 21, Golden State was restricting teams from trading for him. The 19th pick was an effort guy that flew past expectations and was a player that they trusted to start games and play minutes from almost day one, with some even going as far to say he is high-end starter to potentially all-star potential one day. Well, after just another 40-ish games for his career, those expectations have seemed like a complete joke because he has been terrible this year. After shooting a solid 38.5% from deep last season, he makes threes at just a 31.3% rate, despite taking more shots. He cannot put the ball in the basket and has been a huge negative offensively. Another guard, Dennis Schroeder, has not lived up to expectations in San Francisco, shooting a horrid 37% from the field since being traded. Jonathan Kuminga is proving to be a scary decision for the Warriors' future. The power forward, looking for a max contract, has not done much to deserve it, averaging an inefficient 17 game, while not having shown much playmaking across now 4 seasons playing NBA ball. The bigs on this team aren't doing much to help either. Trayce Jackson-Davis seems incapable of making a layup and has regressed from a surprisingly good rookie year, where he appeared as if he could be the future center of this team, while Kevon Looney plays just 16 minutes a game and Draymond Green, still an elite defensive leader, is a 0 on the scoring side of the ball. Andrew Wiggins may be the only Warrior that is playing up to and potentially even surpassing expectations, but that hasn't mattered when stakes are highest. When good teams become great and average teams lose playoff spots, the clutch. Since November 23rd, the Warriors rank second in most clutch losses and have the 6th worst clutch record. They shoot just 34% from the field and below 30% from 3. Compared to other teams in the Western play-in hunt, an 8-12 record is unsustainable to past teams like Phoenix, Sacramento, and Dallas when they are at least 500 in the clutch. And for all those stat nerds out there, myself included, across the entire season so far, the Warriors have the 18th ranked offensive rating, 24th ranked true shooting percentage, 15th ranked net rating, and have allowed more points than they have scored across the entire season. All despite having Stephen Curry, though this may be the time that he's actually on the decline. Though just slightly. Curry's inconsistency is what is increasingly worrying. The baby-faced assassin already has 8 games scoring less than 15 this season, most since 2021-22, and broke his record streak of games with a made 3. A stretch earlier this year of Curry's point totals was 2 points, then 31, back down to 10, then a monster 38, a solid 22, and another disappointment with 11, before going back up to 30. That type of inconsistency from your star player is really difficult to win with. We saw it with the Minnesota Timberwolves a couple years ago with Anthony Edwards, but it could be a sign of regression for Curry. We have seen that other aging great in LeBron recently, still able to put up 35 on any given night and can take over stretches in a game, but has lacked some consistency because they just aren't able to go at 100 for the full 82 game marathon anymore, which is a very real possibility for Steph. Despite clearly not having the supporting cast to be competitive, which would typically lead teams to depend on their star throwing up shots, like it did in 2021, where Steph had a career-high 22 shots attempted a game. This year, he has 5 games with 10 or less field goal attempts, most since 2014-15, a decade ago. His 7.5 field goals made a game are the least since 2011-12, aside from the 2019-20 injury season, and the average of 31.7 minutes are the 3rd lowest across his entire career, only higher than 2019-20, where he played just 5 games, and 2011-12, where he played 26 matches. It is very clear Steph just cannot play as much as he used to, and doing the Olympics over the summer is definitely not helping. But can he still play at the same level he used to? Well, for the most part. But the inconsistency ruins that. While Curry can still peak at an elite level, like we saw in his 38-point explosion on Christmas Day, where the chef cooked up 8 threes and 17 points in the final frame, that doesn't happen as often as it used to. Curry does not have a 40-pointer, just 3 35-pointers and 8 30-bombs this year, on pace for 6 35-pointers and 15 games with 30. Last season, he had 6 matches with 40, 11 with 35, and 28 with 30. We saw that incredible peak in the Olympics, and we know Steph can still be a great player. His off-ball gravity is unmatched, but there might be a slight regression, and that is okay considering he will be 35 in just a month and a half. It would be a disservice to act like the supporting cast isn't hurting Steph for all of the off-ball gravity that Curry has, and combined with just how bad the rest of the team is, that leads to all of the defensive attention being focused on Steph. Non-Warriors are shooting just 35.6% from deep, which sits at league average, which may not seem bad, but considering the gravity that Steph draws, leading to so many open shots is incredibly disappointing. All in all, Steph is definitely on the decline. Not by much, but he isn't the same player he was just a few years ago. What may be the worst part about this is that the team cannot help anytime soon. After a much-needed third-year jump, Jonathan Kuminga has stagnated in his development, making it increasingly likely that he doesn't get the max he was looking for and could potentially be on the trade block due to his upcoming free agency and contract disputes. Andrew Wiggins is having a solid year, but isn't good enough to be the second option on a contender, especially when it's 2025 Steph instead of 2022. The bigs have also got noticeably worse. Kevon Looney was a complete beast in the championship run, but has not played at nearly the same level since, while we have noted on starter Trayce Jackson-Davis's issues. So what can this team even do this year? Well, the answer definitely isn't win. At below 500, this is a complete embarrassment, and they are at risk of missing the play-in entirely. With the Kings' potential implosion of a De'Aaron Fox trade, uncertainty around the Phoenix Suns, and big injury problems with the Dallas Mavericks, it appears as if the Warriors have a solid shot to make the postseason, but even then, they will just lose in the play-in. Or best case scenario, force a 5-game series against the Thunder, Rockets, or Nuggets in round 1, and they're not going to win it. This team is stuck in no man's land, mediocrity, NBA purgatory, where no fan base or team wants to be. But it isn't like this is a change from recency. In 2022-23, they won just 44 games and were the 6th seed, and despite making the second round after beating Sacramento, there were clear concerns for the future, and the following year, they would be the 10th seed and get bounced by that same Kings team in the play-in. This year, Golden State is on pace for 40 wins, their worst win percentage since 2019-20, and ESPN's Power Index gives them just a 15.8% chance to make the playoffs and 1.9% chance to win a playoff series. Worse odds than teams like the 76ers, Hawks, and Kings. The Warriors haven't done much to help their future either, but aren't committing to getting better right now. A clear mismanagement from the front office that even me and you can see. And this is the main problem. The two eras type of rebuild, where the older core of players passes along to the younger group while remaining competitive, rarely ever works, and this may be the worst example of it. The new era of Kuminga, Moody, Pods, Jackson Davis are far away from a competitive team in the West, even at their peaks, and it will already take a lot to keep these guys together with the current roster situation. But despite this, they refuse to trade for some of these guys for older star power. Their recent moves have been getting Dennis Schroeder, Buddy Hield, and Kyle Anderson, while other Western competitors actually beefed up their team, like OKC with Hardenstein and Caruso, Dallas with Clay and Najee, and Grizzlies got Jalen Wells and Zach Edey and returned countless players from injuries. Even other teams in the play-in race are actually making moves, or at least attempting to, like Phoenix in the Jimmy Butler trade rumors, San Antonio with the De'Aaron Fox trade rumors, and having made moves for CP3 and Harrison Barnes in the offseason. Dallas, still in the trade market despite only being low in the standings from injuries, and Sacramento, on the other hand, blowing it up, which is at least doing something. Just sticking around in the middle is what franchises like Chicago do, a team that hasn't had any real direction since the Jimmy Butler days. Staying in mediocrity is what lazy front offices and bad owners do, and it is a complete disservice to Stephen Curry. The Warriors GOAT is getting his final prime years wasted on a middling roster that he's forced to carry to 40 wins. Golden State had 3 options, either to trade a lot but not forced to trade all of their assets to compete in the West, but they would at least give their franchise player and legend, who's been loyal for 15 years, a chance to compete for a title. Trade the vets, including Curry, for a full rebuild would be the second option, at least giving them a chance to actually rebuild and compete in the near future, while letting Curry compete for a championship in his final years. And though it would be incredibly weird to see him on a different team, at least he gets a chance to win another title. Or the third option, which is just doing nothing, wasting Curry's prime and career by staying mediocre at least end of his career and not committing to a rebuild or giving the team a chance to win, despite having the picks and young players to make actual moves. Of course, Golden State did the third. This hunt for the future is idiotic. The team isn't bad enough to take, and even if they were, who cares about a few years from now? Steph Curry is 36 and clearly ending his prime. He has been with the same franchise for his entire career, pouring everything he had into 4 championships and one of the greatest dynasties this league has ever seen. To not give him one last chance is absolutely criminal. Fans aren't asking to trade every asset and go on a Phoenix Suns like tirade where they have no controllable picks until 2032, but at least give Steph a shot. This is inexcusable management from the front office, and Curry along with Warriors fans, should be furious over this, as the last few years of his career and potentially next half-decade for Golden State will be at best a first-round playoff exit and likely just more mediocrity.